Good morning. It's the early show with Rick and Lola. Well, 'tis the season of everything spooky and scary. And one of the things that just scares me are dolls. I get freaked out by dolls. So when I had a chance to interview an author who has a book called A Cursed Collection of Haunted Dolls, well, I had to do it. Fiona Dodwell is a freelance journalist and author who's been passionate about the paranormal for many years, has studied demonology, applied paranormal research, exorcism, theology. She knows what she's talking about. So here is my conversation with Fiona Dodwell about her book, A Cursed Collection of Haunted Dolls. So, Fiona, I will tell you, when I first got your book in the mail, I had that moment of, do I really want to read this? Because dolls dolls are the one thing that really freak me out. And they really, I don't know why they're so unnerving to people. In your research for this book, did you come across why people are so unnerved by dolls?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be quite a common thing, doesn't it? With dolls, we seem to find them quite eerie and unnerving, and I think really it's there's a link there with looking at something that's quite distinctly human looking. So you have these sort of sculpted and painted faces with these often quite lifelike eyes, and I think there's something quite that strikes us as people to look back at something that looks like a mirror of a human being, but in something that's inanimate like that. And then I think there's that cultural shift as well that we had with horror films and, like Child's Play and Annabelle and the true cases that have come about. There's something there that plays in us psychologically, I think, where we just kind of become a little bit suspicious of these dolls over time and think that perhaps that there's a few of them that harbor something a bit more than just innocent playthings, so to speak.
Right, right. So you brought her up. Let's talk about Annabelle. And they took her on tour. Should they have
Yeah.
done that?
I know it's a funny one, isn't it? Because for all those years where Annabelle was kept in the museum, there was a nice kind of feeling to feel like she was locked behind, kept in that museum, and there's something that feels like are we unleashing something by having her on the road like that? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it does kind of make you feel a bit nervous. And then obviously as this story developed recently, as I'm sure you know, with her going on tour, and there were supposed to be kind of mishaps involved, and one of the buildings that she was at was supposed to have there was a fire that started, and then obviously the
Right,
tragic death of Dan Rivera as well.
right.
All these stories culminated, and I mean, obviously, like looking from the outside looking in, you can't make that distinction between things that perhaps might have happened anyway, or whether it was linked to Annabelle and her energy. But I think just knowing what she's been capable of and knowing her backstory, it's really hard to make that separation when you're hearing so many bad things are still happening. And it's quite fascinating, really. I mean, her story goes back to the 70s, and here we are in 2025, and people are still being affected today. So, wherever you kind of fall on the belief or the skepticism side, her story has really kind of reached a lot of people, and it's certainly very unnerving and creepy for sure.
Right, right. Do you believe that that doll is possessed?
I do believe that she has some kind of energy attached. I think um, I know that there's kind of she's a very divisive case actually. There's people out there that are heavily skeptic of Annabelle and the Warrens, and then there are the people that are full on believers and supporters. And um, with it being one of those cases that you can, well, for me personally, that I could only research from the outside looking in, I kind of have to just go with where my gut takes me and with what I've been able to establish and research. And I do kind of go more on the side that there is something to her, for her story and the occurrences around her, to be enduring after all this time. I feel like there has to be something about her, and I know that I would certainly want to be careful if I was in her presence. Although it would be amazing to actually see the doll in person, actually, but I would certainly be a bit a bit frightened as well.
You would take a protection of some sort or approach with trepidation, huh?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because even, you never know, do you? And you do hear these stories, and I do think it's absolutely possible for an object to have energy attached, and like most of the paranormal, a lot of this is unknown. It's unpredictable, and you just never really know. So I would always err on the side of caution anyway with things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Another very famous doll would be Robert the doll,
Yeah,
which, for those of you who are not aware, he's a very old doll he's dressed like a sailor boy.
yeah.
But you must be very respectful around him. You're not allowed to take pictures without his permission. There's a lot to that one. Give me your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the cases that has always fascinated me, the Robert the Doll case. And I think much like Annabelle, what's particularly interesting is you don't just have this historical case from years ago and having to rely on testimony from the past. You're still seeing the reverberations of his haunting and his energy today, in this modern time. So, Robert was a doll that was gifted to a child of a family by a maid, and lots of creepy and paranormal experiences happened. Eventually, the doll itself was donated to a museum in Key West, Florida, and as I'm sure that your listeners know, but even today, people who see Robert to go and visit his exhibition will come away feeling like they're having feelings of bad luck. They're having kind of occurrences that they're putting down to having seen Robert or perhaps taking his photograph. And there's a bit of a legend surrounding Robert that if you take his photograph without permission, or if you've been disrespectful around him, then you can bring bad luck upon yourself, sort of like a curse, really.
Hmm.
Um, that's even happening today, I think. As far as I know, like the museum maintain that they receive letters from people all the time saying, we're sending a letter of apology to Robert. We did this, or we took the photograph, and we regret it. Bad things have happened, and please tell him that we're sorry. Please, kind
I
of
wonder
pass
if
on our
somebody has
apology.
the job of just sitting there and reading letters of apology to Robert.
I know.
It's like, who
That'd be
has
an
that
interesting.
job? You know?
I know. I bet it would be quite a few hours in the week by the sound of it as well. Maybe a full time position by this point.
You know,
If what you read is true. but um,
exactly.
but like Annabelle, that's what fascinates me about Robert, is that it's not just testimony from the past. Now that we're hearing kind of effects that are happening now, and if anything, this can only validate the things that we've heard from the past. So it's certainly fascinating, very interesting case.
Well, in going through your book, you actually talk to people who own dolls who they claim are haunted,
Yeah.
or they're possessed. Why would you own one of those?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, when I first started writing the book myself, the aim was literally just to research the subject and collect other people's experiences. And then before I knew what happened, I ended up with two items of my own. Um,
You
that have,
you own haunted dolls?
two at the moment I have, yeah, which I've kind of mentioned a bit in the book. But I'm currently sort of writing more information on them now in the hope of perhaps releasing another book in the future. But yeah, as this time went on, I found myself owning two myself. Somebody reached out to me and said, that they run a podcast and they had a doll that's supposed to be haunted. They did experiments, and that the end result was they were convinced there was an energy around this doll. Her name is Edna. And they were so unnerved by the doll, they ended up wrapping her in a carrier bag and locking her in the car boot and not wanting to have anything to do with it. And so basically, this person, his name's Rob, he sent Edna to me, and I've had lots of interesting experiences, and I also own a clown with a nickname Knock Knock Harry,
Oh
um,
Lord.
and he's very, you know, well, he's a clown, so he unnerves people anyway. But
Yeah,
I've had
okay.
it, yeah. But I've had a lot of interesting experiences with both the clown and Edna the doll, that have kind of solidified my belief in this. And during like my time of having them, I have thought to myself, why am I doing
Why-
this? Have I lost the plot? And I still wonder that today, actually. But
Do they talk to each other? I mean, it's like, knock, knock, who's there? I mean,
well,
it's
yeah.
like,
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because there was one time I was trying to do an EVP session with Edna, and I was asking her questions, and I was capturing like voice responses, some of it I could understand, and some of it, it was hard to decipher, but it sounded like responses to what I was asking Edna, and it sounded like a childlike voice, and Edna's supposed to be a child. But then halfway through, when I was talking to her, this really deep voice came through and said, "It's not Edna, it's Harry," and sounded really angry. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because it's almost like I was talking to Edna, and that this spirit or energy that I call Harry was kind of like wanting in on the action there, and sort of interrupting a session with another doll. And that was quite interesting. But to go back to answering your question, like, it does make you wonder. I mean, some people are so into trying to collect haunted items, they go out of their way to find them and to own them and to do these experiments. And it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. I think you should always approach things with caution, because you don't know. There's always an element of the unknown. It can always be unpredictable, and the spirit you think you might have attached to an item could be something else entirely, masking itself. So
yeah.
but some people, yeah, they make that, they kind of have a massive passion for trying to find and own these things. And it was not something I set out to do, but now that I own two of them, I have to say it did help me really in writing the book, because it's kind of given me that insight and personal experience. And thankfully, so far, apart from the odd curse word and angry response on EVP, I haven't, it hasn't been anything negative or worrying. So far so good anyway.
And again, we're talking to Fiona Dodwell, who is the author of A Cursed Collection of Haunted Dolls. And just so you know, she is a demonologist. She studies this. She has worked with many famous paranormal investigators and psychics and so forth. So she is not just someone who went and picked up a haunted doll off of eBay or something. So there's there is a lot there is a lot of study behind what she writes in her book. Let's you talk about the real life haunted dolls. Let's give some highlights, literature and into the movies. You got Child's Play, Chucky, and of course, latest is Megan, which I don't
Yeah.
know if I would call her a haunted doll
Mm-hmm.
per se.
Yeah, not specifically really. She was sort of like,
Right.
did she fit, did she not? But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I sort of let her slip in the cracks there a bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Self-aware. She became
Mm-hmm.
self-aware. So,
Yeah.
tell me your thought process going down that path with this book.
Well, it's just like when I was studying the real cases, I kept coming across time and time again how much the whole idea and theme of haunted dolls and cursed dolls were used in the entertainment world. And, surprisingly, like as I was kind of digging deep and looking into the entertainment side, I was finding examples from as far back as the 20s and onwards, so it kind of showed to me that, human beings have always seen something sinister in dolls, and we've kind of adopted that viewpoint to the extent that we've made them the baddies of so many horror films and books. So it's really interesting for me. I did a section, it's the a small section at the back of the book really, where I look into the influence on haunted dolls in films and books. And I was lucky enough to interview Don Mancini, who's the writer and director of Child's Play, and actress Jennifer Tilly, who plays Tiffany the doll as well.
Mhm.
So I interviewed them, and that was really fascinating just to sort of get their insight into the whole thing. And then I interviewed Andrew Jones, who is the director of the Robert the Doll movies here in Britain, and kind of his insight to that, especially with writing about Robert and doing a film about him, I was interested to see the experience of that. So I just kind of made up a guide really to people who enjoy the entertainment side or who are horror fans or enjoy paranormal entertainment, and then kind of added that into the book for people who like their creepiness to be a bit more on the fictional side.
The problem is, it's like, okay, like I'm an avid Doctor Who fan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the characters in the storyline is the Weeping Angels, right? Which
Right. Yeah.
they're not really, they're not dolls, they're statues, but it's enough of a character for me that
Mm-hmm.
I know between my home and where I work, where every single statue is between here and there. I mean, and I do low key keep an eye on them, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
This is this is what happens, isn't it? It kind of seeps into your subconscious and you start to kind of look out for these things, don't you?
yeah, yeah, you do. You do. And then you have those, you know, you go to visit, you know, Aunt Edna's house, and she's got an entire room full of, you know, collector dolls. And you're just like, I want to go home now.
Yeah.
You know? It's like,
Yeah.
it's
I've had
like,
experiences like that with people who have come to my house, because even though I have the two haunted dolls, I collect dolls in general because I just love vintage and antique dolls. And
mhm.
it's not unusual for me to have a visitor or a friend come over and say, you know, oh, can you turn that one around? Or, you know, kind of be creeped out by these little row of eyes watching them, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
I do think, you know, these things, like you said with the statues, you know, people look at them and they look at them in a different light. Once that seed has been planted, you become a bit wary of them, a bit, you know,
Yeah,
a bit a
exactly.
bit scared.
I know we're running short on time, but I have to bring this up because my husband teases me about it all the time. Um,
Okay.
the you know, clowns freak me out. I'm not good with clowns. And sometimes, you know, I'm okay with dolls, but the one thing that really messes me up is marionette dolls.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm like, you know, I've seen the videos of like marionettes like opening up, you know, the haunted ones, like they will open up cabinets and that
Mm.
kind of thing, or their head will turn all the way around, sort of. Why?
Yeah. Why have they done this to us, you know?
Why have they done this to me? It's like I've never done anything to a marionette doll. I don't, he keeps threatening to buy me one, and I'm like, don't you dare.
Oh no.
You know?
That sounds like it'd be your worst nightmare to have one of them.
It would be. It would be. But, you know, you've got a lot of those. It's even in children's stories, you know, like the Goosebumps.
Yeah.
They've got the marionette doll. And I'm just like, I can't. I just, it's a
Well,
kid's show, but I can't.
just to double up your nightmare fuel there, you know, I have like a puppet. I mean, it's not haunted, but it's kind of a puppet, a little bit like a marionette, where there's like a wooden strings and thing attached that makes it kind of move its arms and feet and everything. And that is actually a clown one as well. So you've got double the horror
Oh,
there. It's the clown
Fiona.
and it's
Oh,
so yeah, I don't
thanks
think it's
for
your big
that.
fan.
A cursed collection of haunted dolls, Fiona Dodwell, actually speaking to me from London. So thank you so much for joining us. And of course, this book is available everywhere. It is distributed by Llewellyn. Can you please let everyone know where they can find you on social media and engage with you there?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look up Fiona Dodwell author on TikTok, I'm on there. I'm also on under Fiona Dodwell on Instagram. I'm Fiona Dodwell with my username is at AngelDevil982 on Twitter, or X as it's called now. But yeah, I can be found on all social media platforms, and you'll know it's my account because I've plastered lots of stuff about haunted dolls and my book that's coming out. So hopefully I won't be too hard to find when you look for me. And I'd love
Oh,
to hear from people, actually, some of your listeners, if any have owned a haunted or cursed object that they're happy to share the story, then I'd love to have comments on my social media. I'm always kind of collecting people's experiences and everything. So if people feel free to follow and give me some of their experiences, that'd be wonderful.
No, that sounds so great. Fiona, it has been my pleasure visiting with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
If you want to hear it again or share the conversation with a friend, we've got it up on our website at 103cir.com. It's the Early Show. Good morning.